I would say just go for it. That's what I always tell my students. Don't overthink it. Just go for it. If you feel there's something nagging, a dream that you had, just go for it. And that's how I lead my life, really.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fluency Conversation Club. Today I am joined by none other than Dr. Christiane Schroeter, who is a TEDx speaker, a leadership strategist. She's a doctor, a professor, and best-selling author. Christiane, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome.
I'm so glad to be here, Liam. And audience, is going to be such an amazing episode. So tune in, kick back, and just enjoy.
Fantastic. Right. So let's start from the beginning. And as you know, our audience are non-native English speakers. And you're originally from Germany, right? But living in the US for 20 years. How did that happen? What was the pull of the US for you when you were younger?
Well, this is a great question, Liam. I think living in Germany, if you think about geographic location of Germany, we had bordering countries like right and left, so to speak. So we learned English at an early age, in fifth grade, actually, in Germany. So I always knew that the language that I picked up in school would just be so much more deeply enhanced by going to the country, right? And so I traveled to England, I traveled to France, and then I thought, well, how about going a little further in the United States? And really applied for study abroad programs in the United States. I ended up this amazing opportunity with the Fulbright scholarship, and then ended up studying in the United States and never left. This is truly what happened. But I think, especially for all the Europeans that are tuning in right now, it's just so amazing to really think that each country has their own language, and taking advantage of traveling there and meeting the culture that stands behind the language as well.
Right. Yeah. Because that's a very big part of the immersive experience of going somewhere and living, studying, speaking daily. That kind of experience with language is difficult to replicate, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because now living in the United States, and this is like my first little takeaway from living in the United States and meeting the amazing, super kind Americans. Frequently they hear my name and they're like, "Oh, you're from Germany, right?" And then I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Me too." And I'm like, "No, you're not." But their family at some point had come from Germany. And so it's so wonderful that they still consider themselves German, even though, they grew up here and have been living here for generations. But they are like, "Yeah, no, me too. Deep down, I'm German too." And then, of course, the desire for them to find out how is life in Germany. How is it to learn a different language? It's completely different just because the United States is so big and so vast and so diversified that traveling to Germany is a much bigger step than back then for me when I came here from Germany to the United States. So
Right.
Americans are sometimes very comfortable with where they are. And the desire is a little bit different sometimes in actually traveling abroad and living in that country.
Yes, I was aware of this. I must admit that. Well, I mean, it's such a big country. There's so much to offer within their own country. It is understandable that unless you're really ambitious or really like to seek adventure, then going to other places in the world like Europe, it is quite a long way to go, especially if you're on the West Coast, right? It's a 15-hour flight to get to London, for example. So much easier just to explore your own country, I think.
Well, and I always say, especially you talked about the West Coast, and I know I have to say I'm sorry for all the people in Paris, but in Las Vegas we got a little Eiffel Tower and things like that.
You're right. Yeah, I have seen it. It's impressive. It's not the same thing, but it's still impressive that in the middle of the desert, they've got this crazy big hotels and landmarks that, like, where has this come from? Yeah,
Yeah, I
completely
know.
out of the blue.
Yeah. And so sometimes it's just like, why should I bother and see the real thing? I have the small one right here, right? So it's beautiful. The logic sometimes. I love it so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We won't go down the Vegas rabbit
Nope.
hole because it is one of my favorite places in the world, but this is about you, not me. So, all right. What were your early experiences of being in the US? How advanced was your language when you arrived, and what, if any, cultural problems did you run into when you were fresh off the boat, as it were?
Yeah, so two things, audience, I want to point out here is going abroad and being a tourist is very different from going abroad and studying at a university with other native speakers, which is what I did. So I enrolled in a graduate program, which was difficult by itself, but then learning this all in a foreign language was a completely different layer, to where frequently I sat in class and I didn't understand what the professor was saying, not because the concept was difficult, but the used a word that I had never heard before in economics or in mathematical economics or in some linear programming class. And I kind of wrote down the way that I heard it and made myself like a little list. I have to look up these things later. But then because I didn't know the word that he used, I became really good in understanding the context. So I became like a context oriented understanding person, that I didn't really care that much about getting the details. I just cared for, I think I got the gist of this lecture today.
Right.
Even though I don't exactly know that, I wouldn't know how to explain this to somebody else because I don't have this very specific language that he used, or she, the professor, but I at least understood this was kind of going into this. And that is, I think, the real challenge, that you have to be very forgiving to yourself, that at the beginning you arrive and you think, I have this great knowledge of a language. I can speak this language. I mean, I basically got to, when I nearly graduated my university in Germany. So at that point, I had spoken English 10 years. So you would think I'm like fluent, but then you roll at the university and you have to be really forgiving to yourself and realizing, oh my gosh, I am absolutely not fluent in the specific language ability. So that was my first learning right there. And I'm going to pause because you might have a follow-up question.
Well, just that academic English particularly is a subset of English. It's its own thing, right? There are rules and structures and ways of doing things that are very different to how we communicate in general English or in business English or legal English, right? They all have different focuses. And when I studied at university as a mature student, I'm doing inverted commas for those of you who are listening. Even for me as a native speaker, it took some time to adjust to what they wanted to hear from me in terms of the language. And so I can only imagine how much of a shock that is for someone who doesn't speak the language natively, definitely.
And then on top of that, so you kind of have your understanding of English, you come to the academic environment. Now, on top of that, and this is really important for anybody going to the United States, there are these regional dialects and ways that you can use words interchangeably. So, for instance, my dissertation focused on obesity and how we can maybe tax or limit the intake of soft drinks. But instead of using the word soft drinks, you could say sodas, you could use a lot of regional terminology, and people will not even understand what a soda, for instance, would be. And they think, soft drinks, what is that? And so you can use interchangeably the same word for expressing a lot of the same and pronouncing that differently. So I studied applied economics. So for instance, instead of saying measure, all my professors would say measure. And so I would write down measure and I was like, note to self, I need to look up what that means, until I realized, oh my gosh, it means measure. It's just they're saying it completely measure. I was like, what is that?
Right. They're exaggerating the first vowel sound. Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Agreed.
is, there's the knowledge, the academic knowledge, and then there is the regional dialect that makes everything just a little bit more intricate.
I think this probably sounds like quite a familiar story to the people listening. I have this conversation almost daily when it comes to, all right, what are we working on? Listening comprehension comes up a lot. It's like, okay, what's the problem? Well, okay, I don't understand every word. Like, well, okay, you don't need to understand every word to get the context, for a start. And secondly is probably because depending on what you're most accustomed to, if it's a British voice, the vowels may sound different to an American voice or an Australian voice. And then within that country, you're going to have even more variations depending on what part of the country they
Completely.
come from. So yeah, it's a very common challenge for that.
It's a great description. Yeah, so that was kind of like my first experience. And then second
Okay.
experience was that there definitely came a part in the day where I was like, all right, if there were to be like a switch button, I would probably press that right now and just listen to my native language just for a little while because I'm kind of tired right now.
Right.
It happened in the
Yeah.
evenings usually where I was like, okay, so now I'm just kind of
I'm
ready
done.
to hear something.
Yeah,
Done.
I can't do the second language anymore. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it. I've hit my limit for the day. Yeah.
Sometimes, like, we were going on car rides or whatever in the evening, going out for dinner, and I would notice myself just kind of tuning out of conversations. I was like, "Do, do, 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 do." And I was like, "I just need to relax my brain." I feel like I worked overtime all day, took classes, hung out with people, interacted in stores, and right now I just need to kind of, like, just let my brain, like, relax a little bit. So that happened. That was the second learning.
Hello. Hope you're enjoying the conversation. If you haven't already, please hit the like and the subscribe button, as well as the bell icon to get updated every time we put up a new episode.
There's this point where you feel you stretched your limits so much that you're like, okay, this is just about as much of a foreign language I can handle during a day. But now the third learning is when you overcome that, and there's no rhyme or reason when that happens, all of a sudden you start dreaming in the foreign language. So it's like there's a boundary. Let's say it's whatever, 12 hours, right? You get up at 7 o'clock and even you're tired. And if you push that boundary, between 7 p.m. and then, by the time you go to sleep and how you dream, all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh, I dreamed in English.
Right. Yeah. Because you're processing, if you're spending the whole day processing in English and that's your second language, and you push to the point where you're going to bed, your brain is still processing the day. And so, okay, we were English before, we'll carry on in that way, right? Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I wanted to follow up on what you said about point two and the mental fatigue of constantly working in a second language, because this is an area of speciality for you, I think, isn't it? So what tips or advice do you have for people who may be feeling that, and how do they build the mental stamina to be able to deal with long periods of time of working in their second language?
For sure. Yeah, I actually named this concept, and this is very funny for everybody that listens, and French is their native language. I actually, this concept, petite practice. At first, it seems overwhelming because you are in a foreign country and you're processing everything in this foreign language. And what you can do is just taking small steps, taking small breaks. And those small breaks could just be 15 minutes where maybe you listen to a podcast, or maybe you talk to a friend in your native language. And those small breaks then over time will actually help you overcome this fatigue that you just needed. So a petite practice just means petite, small, right? But practice that you're allowing yourself, you're giving yourself the kind of the hall pass, right? We call it in the United States, the hall pass. Like you're like, all right, I need a break. And you give yourself permission. I'm going to take a break. And I'm going to step away from this foreign language because my brain is tired. And right now, I just need to listen to something that's familiar to myself. Maybe music is great. Just listen to some songs in your native tongue. Or, as I say, like a book, or just read a book, or go for a walk and talk to a good friend. It will make such a big difference because all of a sudden your brain is refreshed and it's like, that was familiar. And now I'm ready. I'm ready again. And I think that kind of mental switching really helps because you're not always feeling you're on, but you gave yourself the ability to maybe come back to something you're more comfortable with.
Right. Yeah, because when your brain is programmed in your native language, it's much easier for the neural pathways to send the signals than when you're working in something which is not been programmed from an early age.
And actually, so I've been here now. I came to the United States in 1999. So now this is 27 years, right? There are some things, Liam, I still do in German. And I will
Okay.
probably never, ever switch, right? And audiences might be familiar to you. counting,
Yeah.
still doing counting in German. Eins, zwei,
Yeah.
drei. That was just like, and then see how the way that I use my fingers? Americans
Right.
don't do that. They don't start with a
Uh,
thumb. This is not one in the United States. One in the United States, they do it this way. And I'm like, nope, I'm always going to use my thumb. This is my one, and this is my
right.
two. In the United States, this means like
And
loser.
you do three like this as well in Germany, don't you?
Three,
I
right?
think, right?
Three.
Whereas three, it
Three.
might be three like this in.
Yes, yes.
All right. Got you.
So that
Yeah.
actually, I had to like tweak my fingers. This is like three in the United States. My fingers are not even genetically made for that, right?
I've got a hyper flexibility with my fingers and joints, so it's like I can play with that.
So, audience, this is a little of an inside joke. When I gave my TEDx talk, I had this system that's called STEP, right? So there were 4 elements in the system. And when I prepared for my TEDx talk, I knew that I wanted to use my fingers. And there was a quick moment when I thought, should I go with the German way with a 1 or should I go the American way? What should the 3 look like? And then I thought, no, I am going to do my 3 the way that I'm familiar with my 3. And so some of my students came to that TEDx talk and they thought it was the most adorable thing ever that I did the 3 like that. So we have lots of pictures where we are standing with the 3 and they're like, what is that? And I said, it's a 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, to share a pop culture reference, you just have to watch the Quentin Tarantino movie Inglourious Bastards, and there's the scene in the bar with the Gestapo agent and Michael Fassbender, who is English playing a German, and that's how they get found out. Is he raises his fingers to say 3 beers in the wrong way, and then it kicks off in the bar. It's a big shootout. So there you go. If you haven't seen the movie, take a look. It's a great scene.
This is brilliant. Love that. Yeah, this is good.
Fantastic. All right. I mean, you mentioned TEDx. What was the subject of your TEDx talk?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier the Petite practice, the small steps that lead to big impacts. And that was really the main kickoff point for my TEDx talk, that I really wanted to share that frequently when we feel stuck, overwhelmed, or we're just kind of like not sure exactly how to tackle those big problems, that the Petite practice is the way to get there. That when we take consistent steps and actions every day, we're actually going to reach those big goals. And so in my TEDx talk, I'm sharing the framework, how to get there.
You mentioned earlier that you did your postgraduate in economics. How did you get from economics to what seems more like a personal development coaching type methodology?
Well, so my dissertation focused on obesity, and I just
Right.
explained the Petite practice. So in my dissertation, actually, I looked at how can we take small steps to prevent obesity? How could we maybe not drink that soft drink every day? And see that just cutting out something as small as one soft drink, how would that change our body weight over the course of a year? And that is really the gist of my dissertation. So when I think back, Liam, I feel like my whole life, I always had this Petite practice interwoven somehow. I just never gave it a word. And so in economics, you frequently think about you have a change, what's the outcome, right? And that is really my change was, let's change something health related and let's look at a health related outcome that is really an economic issue. Obesity is extreme costly to the United States or to any other country. So what can be changed that's small enough that it wouldn't feel like you're sacrificing anything or you're feeling you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation that still leads to that big outcome. And it was quite tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the hidden costs. It's not necessarily the obesity. It's the health related problems that come along with obesity, heart
Exactly.
disease and internal function that cost billions of dollars per year
It
to
is.
the healthcare system, isn't it?
It is. And then at the same time, too. So think a little bit. I'm also a role model, not to my students, but also to my family, right? So I have children. And you asked earlier, how did I take this turn from economics to my focus right now? Is I always have to think, all right, this is the one life that I have. I want to impact as many people as possible, starting in my own family, right? I don't want to just like say, all right, I'm going to publish the next scientific article. I actually want to help people really better their life and improve it in small steps at a time. And that is starting with my own children. So I want to create better human beings. That's really like my goal in life, right? And I can't do that by telling people, "Oh, just go for your goals." I need to actually help them and break down these big goals so they can take action even under times of pressure.
Yeah, I think it's a big job.
Mhm.
And the more people that we have who are contributing to the greater good, the better. I think it's quite we're roughly similar age, and I think very much it's a generational influence of wanting to have an impact on a bigger scale, right?
Completely.
Helping as many people as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. I also think that it's inspiring for people when they find out I'm from Europe and how I did this big leap. But at the same time, I tell them it's actually a Petite practice in itself. It's not like just one day I decided to come here. I mean, it was a long time in the planning. And of course, I mentioned that I started learning English when I was 10. So it's not like I left the country immediately. I learned and learned and learned. I started researching. I started trying out different programs. So in general, when you think you have a big goal of doing something, you just need to keep that goal in your mind and then break down the first step that you could take to get there and then take that step today. And then you're going to create that momentum.
Agreed. Like you're obviously a very positive, energetic person, but in your experience over the years, there must have been times when things weren't as easy or there was challenges along the way. How do you overcome those when they come?
Well, this is a really good question. So earning my PhD was definitely hard. And looking back now, I think that there's not always the smartest people that actually complete an advanced degree. I think it's just the most persistent people.
Okay, right. Yeah.
So, speaking back about my roots, I think it sometimes helped me that I was actually this kind of stubborn, resilient German that really pushed through. So at the end of the day, sometimes your upbringings can help you and push through. So there were many moments when I was like, what did I get myself into? It's absolutely crazy. Or even like then starting to work at the university. So I started my job in California being pregnant with my first daughter.
Right.
Audience, not the time to start a new job.
As a professor, yeah.
No, on the tenure track. And I was like meeting my students for the first time, and they were looking between my face and my belly and like, oh, we're meeting too. So I think there were many moments when I thought, why am I doing this? I think now where I'm at, that in your life, you probably have 4 or 5 careers that you really pursue. And it's never linear how you jump from one to the other. You kind of like the best thing, my recommendation to you would be you have to look at sometimes when you take a step and it doesn't work out the way that you thought it would work out, that it was just your first attempt in learning, which when you write this down stands for fail, right? Your first attempt in learning. That it's never really like a failure. You just tried out something and it just didn't work out the way that you thought it would be. And then you need to try out another thing. So I would not say that coming here, going for my PhD, landing a job was like a linear thing. I think I was more like a butterfly where I kind of flew there and then here. And at the end of the day, I'm here now. And for people that don't know the whole background story, to them, it looks like, oh my gosh, she has her life together. She always had a straight line. It's absolutely behind the scenes, not that way at all.
I mean, when you were talking about the non-linear career, I was like, oh my God, you know me so well. How do you know all about my life? I've been a bank teller. I've worked in television. I've worked in music. I also was a croupier for many years, professional poker player, acupuncturist, teacher, coach. It's just a huge variety of things.
I like the poker player. That's definitely something.
I'm not someone who's risk adverse. I'm willing to take a gamble on things. So that
Me
kind of,
too. Me too.
that
I think
helps. That helps.
it helps. I think if you learn a language and you go to the foreign country, You need to do that. You kind of cannot overthink what will happen. You're just like, I'm just going to go for it. I remember
Right.
standing at the airport and my family telling me good night and all of a sudden, goodbye. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually leaving my home country. I actually did not know anybody in the United States, like zero, nobody. There was no welcome committee on the other side of the big lake. And I was like, what in the world am I doing?
Right.
You have to be that way.
Absolutely. Whenever you get outside your comfort zone, there's always risk involved. But
Mhm.
if you spend all your time and energy worrying about that risk, you're not going to get the benefit of the experience.
What's the worst that can happen? Okay, so I'm going to fail. But you know what? That could just be the best thing that could happen because then I know that that was not what I was supposed to do. So the worst thing could turn into the best thing because it can also be a story that you could tell somebody else and that will really build your overall personality. It's like, guess what? I did this and oh my gosh, it was such a disaster. It's like, no way. I mean, that's interesting. It's not great if you constantly just tell success stories about yourself.
Right. We're attracted to the pain as humans.
That's
We love the stories of awkwardness and being uncomfortable and, seeing someone else going through something difficult because that's how we connect. Because a lot of the time we're negatively focused. If you listen to too many success stories, you stop trusting someone. Like, your life can't be that perfect. It's impossible.
Penny, for your thoughts. We'd really like to know what you think. So please leave your comment in the comment section. Thanks.
I have the worst awkward story ever. You want to hear
Please.
it?
Yes, please.
All right, people. So I moved to the actually I have two awkward stories, but this one is really bad. Moved to the United States. And then all of a sudden in the fall, there's this thing, that's called trick or treating, right? And here I am living in married student housing. I mean, I wasn't married, but that was like where graduate students lived, like married student housing. And there were these children knocking on my door, right? Nobody gave me a fair warning, which would have been amazing. But hey, guess what? I was just in my focus on my studies. So these kids at the door, and I'm like opening, and they're like trick or treat, and I was like, I don't even know what that means, right? And so I was like, okay, and I was like, what do you guys want? And they're like, we want candy. And I was like, you're talking to the wrong person. I'm writing my dissertation about obesity. I do not have candy, right? And I was like, wait, candy. And I was like, do you want apples? And I'm like, we don't want apples. We want candy. And I was like, okay. So I went to my closet and I was like, well, what's like the most junk food type thing that I have? So I had like this canned, it was like noodles or something like that. This can of like macaroni and cheese, or like it was like these noodles with tomato sauce. It was like in a can. So I took
Right.
this
Yeah. Like
can.
spaghetti hoops or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
they opened their bag. And I don't think that they saw what I had. And so I just kind of like threw my can in this. And they're like,
Oh,
whoa.
that's great. Yeah. That's
And
so heavy.
they looked at me like, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome.
Yeah. Close the
It was
door
so
quickly.
embarrassing. They were like,
Yeah.
what is this really weird? She just gave us a can of spaghetti. And I was like, bye. It's fun. See you later. That was my first.
What a great cultural awareness story.
No, they just stood there and they were like, I was like, why are they looking this way? They're like all dressed up. And I was like, Carnival is in February. I mean, you guys are like way out of season right now.
Wow. So you have carnival in Germany as well, because this isn't a thing in England.
Big thing in February. Yeah. If you think about the Rhine River,
Hmm.
there is all this carnival activity, lots of it. It's a Cologne, for instance, really big and very, it's actually kind of drawn out. I think it starts in February and then it goes all the way until end of March, I think. They're burying the carnival at the end, but it is a big cultural thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
we don't celebrate celebrate carnival in February. There are
Mm.
carnivals, like for example, one of the big famous ones in London is the Notting Hill Carnival, but that's usually in the last weekend of August.
Oh yeah. It's in this. It's always very cold, which is when I grew up in Germany. Like you had to dress up and then like bundle yourself up. It's like this is not good. But
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then
that's
you get your beer blanket on and you warm up
yeah,
very quickly. Yeah.
yeah.
Bit of
So anyway, that's my first awkward story.
Okay. Yeah. That I can imagine that feeling quite awkward about that. That would be,
Mm.
especially with children as well, because they have those little cherub faces and the expectation of they open the door.
Never,
What is going on?
will never forget this when they gave me the bag and I was like this clunk
The noise as it hits all of the other
with the
candy that
can.
they got in the
And I
bottom of
was
the
like,
bag.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your experience of teaching, and are you teaching economics? What are your class about? How does that relate to
Yeah,
everything
so
else?
I teach marketing, I teach a sales class, innovation entrepreneurship. Of course, those are Cal Poly is an undergraduate institution. There are some graduate programs here, but I teach mainly undergraduate students. So I sometimes see the same student like 3 or 4 times going through my various classes because they really enjoy my very energetic teaching style. So it could be they take sales, and I take marketing, then I take entrepreneurship, and then I see them again in a senior project class. Yeah, those are the classes I teach.
Nice. Okay. What's been the shift or focus in these areas over the last, several years? Where do you see things moving forward into the future?
For sure. Yeah. That is, I think, the biggest difference that I became much more aware how students are different learners. So at the beginning, when I came out of graduate school, I had my slides, I had my clicker, and I was basically doing a classic lecture, right? Standing and talking and hoping that everybody assimilates things like a big sponge, walking away, giving exams. And that completely is not happening at all anymore. Most of the time, I don't even open the projector or the slide deck at all because I feel that is so linear, using that word again, in terms of assuming that we are all audible learners or visual learners looking at slides. In reality, most students are more like kinesthetic learners. So they really
Guilty.
learn by experiencing things. So you can't just assume that by talking to them that they actually walk away and they would be ready to take a quiz or an exam. You actually need to have them interact with the material. My books, you can see on the shelf behind me, are very much focusing on that. So I have word searches, I have little personality quizzes, I have areas where they need to answer questions about their goals or their vision and really helping them understand it. But the writing is important because it connects with the brain. And then also the fun portion, those personality quizzes or the word searches, because
Hmm.
learning should be fun. So that's really how my teaching has shifted. It used to be a lecture, and now it is really just an interactive experience. That's really how I would call it.
Wow, fantastic. Where were you when I was studying? That would be amazing.
Mm,
Yeah.
we have so much
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, we have a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a major part of for kinesthetic learners is that emotional engagement, right?
Exactly.
If you can attach the information to fun, it's going to stay with that person a lot longer than the shutting down and going into boredom mode, and you're not taking in anything. You're lost in your own thoughts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think like it's great when professors think, "Oh my gosh, like what I'm teaching is the most important thing in the world, and I really want that people learn marketing or sales." Da, 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 da. And that is also one thing that has really changed. I don't see myself as like a subject-oriented expert, even though I am. But I really
Hmm.
see myself as a person that has an important impact on a young individual at a very crucial point in their life. I can really mold them because of the neuroplasticity in their brain and make them better human beings. So I don't just
Mm.
like say, all right, here, did you get these concepts? What is marketing? What is sales? But I rather want to have, how do you use marketing and sales in your day-to-day life? How do you, when you go to a store, look at these products a little bit differently? Like, how did this help you actually interact with the world a little bit better? That's really how I look at that. And I want that they feel they can use it in their day-to-day life, and it makes them more aware about the world.
Right. Yeah, I love that. It's such a great life skill to have.
Exactly.
You're teaching them critical thinking skills, essentially,
Exactly.
within the realm of marketing and sales and business, but still, You're challenging them to think about what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and how they're processing that.
Exactly.
This is an incredibly important life skill, no matter what role or job that you do in the future, especially in a world that's so full of information.
Exactly. Yeah.
How is AI changing what you do?
Well, I think that the way that I look at AI is a little bit like, especially because I'm a health coach right here. It's a little bit like buying a treadmill and then using it to become fit or to improve your health and wellness, right? So you can't just buy a treadmill and call it good and have it sitting in your living room and look at it and expect that it's like magically transforming your body and makes your muscles become more toned. It's not happening this way. You need to interact with it. You need to learn how to use it. And the treadmill will not run itself. So you can just get on it and like, wow, it's going to be great. You actually really need to learn like what programs work for you. When is the best time to use it? When is maybe not a good time to use it? And it's the same thing with AI. There are times that are amazing, but at the same time, it really comes down to becoming a user of it on a regular basis and really understanding what will make your life more efficient using it and what's the goal you're really doing. And as I say, coming back to my treadmill example, I can't tell you how many people have treadmills in the garage that they never use. It's the
Right.
same
Or
thing with
it's
AI,
used
right?
as
There are so many.
an open
I know.
wardrobe to hang your clothes over.
Exactly. Yeah, so there are
Yeah.
so many people that use AI and I'm reading their stuff and I'm like, man, this is just really bad, right? So it's just the same thing, like it's that treadmill. And I think that what you need to think a little bit about is a treadmill is a great thing. And I think you can easily get one for yourself, low cost, minimal time equipment. But the way is just you have to figure out how it works for you and how you work with it to make your life better.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had this conversation, myself and Ramps, who's my co-host. We completely agree that the tool is so helpful in so many ways, and when applied correctly, it's going to boost your ability to learn a language, to learn a new skill, to do pretty much anything, especially
Yeah.
language related,
Yeah.
but only if you use it properly.
Yeah.
If you go the easy, lazy route and just get it to do the stuff for you, there's no learning in that. There's no application to the mistakes or corrections that it might make for you.
Yeah.
And
And I
in that
think
way, your
also,
brain's not going to process things differently.
yeah, and I think what's important too is that it's easy to say, I don't like AI or I don't want to use it or anything like that. But that's really limiting yourself as well. So it's both extremes, right? It's using it not properly and at the same time, it's not using it at all. So you kind of need to be in the middle ground where you're creating boundaries around it. And basically, just like an instruction manual, kind of like figure out when is it a good idea to use it and when is it absolutely like off limits. And I think that makes it so important that you become your own best coach and really figure out where the areas in your life are that you could improve with, especially if you want to learn a second language or third language or whatever.
What resources do you keep coming back to time after
Mhm.
time? What are the books or the videos, the speakers that you recommend most to people who are on a learning journey?
Yeah. So, because I'm recording this on my phone, I can't show you right now, but I just had a conversation yesterday with one of my students after the marketing class that I use Duolingo on a daily basis. Yesterday, I pulled up the screen and we saw that student was at a 500-day streak, that I'm at a 1,544-day streak yesterday. And he was very
Right.
impressed. And I said, well, I don't look at it that way, that I've been on a 1,544-day streak, but I use it every day. Yeah, every day I use my Duolingo in the morning and in the evening. It's like the bookend to my day. Start my day and my day. Duolingo
Right.
in between, right?
Yeah.
So that helps me a lot. And then audiobooks. I am a person that needs to do her walk every day outside. And while I sometimes don't listen to anything, I just enjoy nature or I think about something. I do also like to listen to audiobooks, and that will help me a lot, and especially business books. I go through a lot of books per week and per month, and that really is because I'm walking so much outside and I'm listening on a high-speed book at that point. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. What's your most listened to book? Which the ones that you go back to again and again?
Yeah, so I'm currently really listening to a lot of the Mel Robbins books. Of course, there's the
Right.
classic, the Let Them, right? But then I'm kind of exploring some of her other books too, which is interesting, Liam, I have to say, because in her books, she talks about the goals that she has, and it has changed over time. So it's very humbling because she is at this point in her career now where everybody knows her. She's like a household name, but it didn't always used to be this way. She had a lot of different ways that she actually planned her career to be, and she talks about that in her books. And I love that it's so transparent in terms of how she really changed her career trajectory. Yeah, my goal was to kind of finish all of her books and kind of see how she developed over time. I didn't get it done chronologically, but I made it through nearly all of them now.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, I like Mel Robbins. I haven't read any of her stuff, but I've seen her talking about um, various methodologies that she's used or implemented, and the one that stuck out to me was the 5-second rule.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really like the premise of it, which is, especially when you don't want to do something, you give yourself to the count of 5 and you get up and do it.
Yeah.
And just talking yourself into doing it, essentially, and creating that grit and perseverance to get through the most difficult of times by giving yourself 5 seconds to feel it, to feel that disappointment or to feel the pain, whatever it is. And then that's it. That's your time to move on afterwards, essentially,
Yeah.
I think.
That's definitely a good one.
My final question for you, Christiane, what is a final thought you would like to leave with the audience this evening?
I would say just go for it. That's what I always tell my students. Don't overthink it. Just go for it. If you feel there's something nagging, a dream that you had, just go for it. And that's how I lead my life, really. We talked about the risk taking, but I'm totally a person. I sometimes just feel, yeah, I should do that. And then I'm just going to do it. Yeah. And you will never find out if you don't do it.
Exactly. And regret is something that it will eat you up
Yeah.
inside. It's
Yeah.
better to try and fail than to not try at all.
Well, and just think about how much fun you're going to have laughing about yourself if you miserably failed. Might not feel great in the moment, but then later on, see how we just laughed about my trick or treat story? I mean,
Right.
that's pretty funny, you know. But
Yeah.
then looking back, I could have done more research and figured out what this holiday is about. I mean, all of this, but at the same time, it is very funny now. So I just go for it, do it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Christiane, where can people find you if they want to get in touch, say hello, read more about you and your work?
I would love for you to check out my YouTube channel. It is Dr. Christiane, where actually some of my students recorded even videos with me right there. Dr. Christiane. And of course, I'm sharing my insights, my knowledge. You can find all my book on Amazon. Amazon.com. Like all countries have my Amazon books available. And then, of course, my podcast is called Happy Healthy Hustle. So wherever you listen to your podcast, you will find my podcast as well. Happy Healthy Hustle.
Fantastic. I can recommend the podcast personally. They're great episodes, all about interesting topics within the health, wellness, and personal development world. And they're all relatively short, under 10 minutes average. So you can get a little bite-sized piece of information and have Dr. Christiane in your ear for a few moments.
Yeah.
So that will brighten anyone's day, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. It's that Petite practice that we talked about. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly. You're welcome. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming and having this conversation with me. I would love to do a part 2 at some point in the future.
Oh, great.
We could talk more about the podcast and what's going on in the world. And it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.